I'm sorry, sir? Check 1 2, check 1 2. Test 1 2, test 1 2.
You are muted. Okay. You are muted. Plus Alt A. You are unmuted. Okay. So. Yep. Sounds perfect. Okay. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Commissioner Douthert, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You are in connection with the chamber, so you're part of the meeting at this point. No
Okay.
delay, no echoes, we're in good shape.
Okay, then I just need to click on the channel 640 little thing that's up in the corner here.
Yep, and just make sure you keep the volume down on the TV. You'll be listening to the meeting right through your computer, just like the rest of the board members here.
Okay. I'll just
All right.
leave it on now, and I don't have to change it at 6 o'clock, right?
Yes, sir. 5:45, we're doing the agenda setting meeting, and then 6 o'clock, or whenever the agenda setting meeting ends, we'll be moving into the regular meeting.
Okay.
So if you get disconnected for any reason, just call my cell phone, sir.
Okay. Thanks, Kurt.
Thank you.
Okay.
Super, thank
This
you.
is a corrected copy of what's inside your package. In there.
In this package? In here? Well, it looks like I'm getting now the third update.
I thought it was in this package.
It's 11E, right? So this and this, what?
This is a memorandum that came out from Megan.
Okay, folks.
Oh, no, this is from Linda. Linda, same date, same date. Manager, date. Oh, this is additional.
Okay, almost. It is Wednesday, August 5th, 5:45 p.m. This agenda setting meeting is called to order. City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Vice Mayor Andrews,
Here.
Commissioner Price. Here. Commissioner Hodges. Here. Commissioner Douthrop,
Here.
and Mayor Hendricks.
Here. This is a workshop agenda setting meeting. Commissioners, is there anything you'd like to add to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I got a couple of things. I'm assuming that everybody received these packets yesterday from the city manager. One was a benefit guide. The other was what appears to be a recommendation for the CIO, or I'm sorry, the city information officer. Oh, it is CIO. Okay. I'd like to put this on here. If the city manager wants to discuss this with us, I think the proper place to do that's in a workshop. So I'd like to put that on the agenda. And also, I would like to discuss something that I heard about a tentative task force that the city manager was considering setting up to go into local businesses to check them for COVID violations. Those are the two things I'd like to put on.
Okay. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yes.
Was that for me?
This is Commissioner Douthat. I would like to
Commissioner Douthat,
add,
do you,
say again,
go
please.
ahead. Go ahead, please.
I would like to add, to talk about the Seafood Festival in January, please.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yes, I would like to get from the city manager an update on Jonathan Evans' self-disclosure to the International City Managers Association. I thought he was going to look into that, and I'd like an answer about, what's going on with that before we do our own complaint. And then I've already got something else on there, so I'll be nice this time.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Okay, if I can clarify two things. I think the city attorney was requested to draft a letter to ICMA, and I'm not sure if he's ready for a report on that yet. The item that the vice mayor brought up, we were researching a task force operation, and I made inquiries on it. And obviously I wouldn't do something like that unless I came before the commission, and there were actually some stumbling blocks to it. So I'm not proceeding with that. It was just an idea that we had and we were working on it. So But I'd be more than happy to fill you in on what we were planning, but it's really a moot point at this juncture. I
I would definitely still like to discuss it, please, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I do have 3 issues. One, Mr. Mayor, that you had mentioned about lending equipment to other municipalities. We do have a policy where we have shared equipment with other municipalities, and so we can discuss that. And then there's the Duke Clean Energy connection that they have proposed to us, and I believe our Public Works Director would like to speak to that at the workshop, as well as the Ajax roadway rehabilitation and resurfacing project. So if I can add those 3 things to it and go from there.
Okay,
And
thank you.
Bob,
Yes.
what I'm asking for is something a little bit different. This is Commissioner Price.
Yes.
Like 9 months ago, you were asked to file a complaint against former city manager Jonathan Evans, and apparently that didn't get done because you've represented that you were told he self-disclosed, and then the conversation turned into, well, what did he self-disclose? And I just want to get to the bottom of it. You know, I think we need to, we can't let things like this fall out of the wayside. I'm going to bring them up month after month after month until I get the answer. So
No,
I
and
want to
that's
know
fine.
everything
That's
that
fine.
happened, everything you looked at, okay?
Right.
Okay,
And
thank you.
the other commission that was here, there was communication that was done at that time. I'll be more than happy to share that with you.
Well, it wasn't done in public, so, because I was at virtually all the commission meetings, and I was kind of keeping an eye on that.
Okay.
So
I'll be
please
more than happy to
clue me in
explain.
on what occurred. That's all I need.
Sounds
And
good.
yes, we're going forward. I've seen the draft that, you know, or I've at least supplied a little information, I'm sorry I haven't seen the draft, that our current city attorney is hoping to draft up, but what I want to know is what happened 9 months ago, 8 months ago, 7 months ago, 6 months ago.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I have one item to add, that is public nuisance, dealing with contractors that are starting projects in the city. They have their permits, and then the projects are setting 6 months, a year, 18 months, basically partially built abandoned properties. And I'd like to look into what we can do to move these partial unfinished projects forward and clean up some of these neighborhoods where properties are being left like that. So I'd like that put on the agenda. Okay, do I have confirmation of direction by the city manager?
Yes, I don't have the outline in front of me of the ones that were on the agenda, so, but I know we have those. And there's a discussion about the research done on conducting a task force. There's the information on Jonathan Evans from the previous request that was made. There was the lending equipment to municipalities and the Duke Clean Energy connection, the Ajax roadway rehabilitation, resurfacing, and projects that are left uncompleted by general contractors.
Yes, and the enterprise car rental agreement.
Okay, I missed that,
And
I'm
the
sorry.
seafood festival.
Oh, and the seafood festival, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the recommendation on the city information officer.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
Oh, what?
Okay, with that, this agenda setting meeting is adjourned.
I don't think we put enough on there.
What's that?
I don't think we put enough on there.
No kidding. This meeting of the Board of Commissioners of City of Madeira Beach is called to order August 5th at 6 p.m. Commissioner Hodges, will you lead us in an invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Yes, sir. Our Heavenly Father, we praise you for giving us the opportunity to meet together this evening to discuss and decide matters of common interest and concern. We acknowledge that all self-government is a privilege that not all people in this world enjoy. Help us to use this power and not a privilege wisely and in a way that will preserve and enhance the gifts for generations. This we follow, and this we pray. Amen.
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Mayor Hendricks,
Here.
Vice Mayor Andrews.
Here.
Commissioner Price,
Here.
Commissioner Hodges,
Here.
Commissioner Douthert.
Here.
Next is approval of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, can we move from new business 11F, the review of the original draft of the fraud examination report and supplemental information, from new business to unfinished business? I don't think that qualifies as new business. We've talked about it a couple hundred times. So if it pleases the board, I'd like to move 11F over to unfinished business, either 9A or B. It wouldn't matter to me.
Bear with me, Commissioner Andrews, it's not on my list here. I must be missing a page. I've got 11A, and then it goes straight to 12.
So 11F would now be 9B.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, the floor is now open for public comment.
Ray Kerr, 583 Johns Pass Avenue, Madeira Beach. I'd like to discuss the new four-way stop at 140th and North Bayshore. On July 22nd, which I believe was the last workshop meeting, it was on the agenda. I missed it, but apparently it was structured from a July 13th memorandum from Jamie to the board through the city manager. And it addressed the four-way stop, and that was required due to vegetation that was on 140th that was reducing the line of sight and around that curve. During the presentation, Jamie mentioned that it could be installed. It would be installed in early August, and that the recommendation is not to use the crosswalks at that site any longer, and that rumble strips may be required because it could become a hazard with new traffic. I did not make the Wednesday meeting. Wednesdays are hard for me to meet, to make. However, I did review the online meeting that very next morning and immediately sent an email to the city manager and copied, actually I sent it to the city mayor, John Hendricks, and copied the city manager, citing my objection to it being done immediately without public comment. The city manager responded very quickly and suggested that he was forwarding it to the city manager. It was something in his realm, and that it was a recommendation due to the blind curve that I just spoke about, and numerous pedestrians voicing their opinion about traveling that. Again, I put together some background on that. I'm going to run out of time. There's over 700 properties that use that intersection on a regular basis to get to Gulf Boulevard or to get off the island. Over 1,000, probably 25 to 30% of your residents in Madeira Beach. They never had a chance to discuss this. I provided a 3-page discussion to the city manager and to the city mayor, if I might have more time, on this agenda item, requesting that it be brought up and placed on tonight's agenda. It was suggested that that would be possible. However, on several days later, 4-way stop is put up without discussion. I feel like somebody just stuck a finger in my eye. It's not that I'm asking you to do something on my behalf. I'm asking that the public have an opportunity to discuss something that's going to impact them all. Now South Bay Shore is a public access. It used to be just several residents there, but now everyone off the island, they're going to have a choice to go down the island or to go down to South Bay Shore being the shortest, easiest, quickest route, especially if most of the traffic off of the point is coming down 140th. I asked for backup on the DOT. Have there been any collisions there? What was their recommendation? My objection is that there wasn't any public comment. There wasn't a chance to comment. Commissioner Hodges had some reservation on the workshop, during the workshop meeting, but that was the only beginning of the comment. So I just felt I needed to voice my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Preston, 425 South Bay Shore. I'm 180 degrees different than what Ray is. I'm tickled to death that it's there. I've almost been run over a couple times walking across the street. By the time you leave North Bay Shore and go to South Bay Shore, the car is on you in the middle of the road before you have a chance. It's a 25-mile-an-hour zone. People travel 35, knowing that if they go over 35, they'll get a ticket, so they travel at 35. And Ray's comment, Mr. Kerr's comment about South Bay Shore, what happens before the stop sign was that people would see their neighbors go down to Island Drive, and then they would cut down South Bay Shore and go as fast as they can to beat them, which might save them 30 seconds to get to their house at the very max. So it's a very needed stop sign. It slows traffic down. There was actually a police officer or a sheriff's officer there this morning. I talked to him. His name was Brandon. And he said cars have been working just fine on it. There was only one incident in the almost 3 hours that he was there where somebody didn't stop. So, and that's probably just because they weren't used to it or whatever. I think it's a very good, it was needed for safety. And nobody contacted me when they decided to put seatbelts in cars either, so just one of those things. It's a safety item. The other thing I was going to bring up was there was an attorney that gave a presentation a few months ago about liens and going after those liens. And he gave a presentation, but I haven't even heard anything since on that and where that's at if the city is going after those properties that owe the city funds. So just kind of curious about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Can I pull my mask down? Okay, thank you. It's easier to talk. Charles Lambert, 565 Crystal Drive, Bandera Beach. I want to talk about the same subject, about the stop sign at 140th and Bayshore. First I heard about this was on Nextdoor. A lot of people use that as a way of communication, and then perhaps a week later, we noticed the sign came up. You know, to Ray Kerr's point, we've had little conversation on this, and I think we need some more on it, perhaps some more studies done on it as well. I think we were a little presumptuous in just putting that sign up there. But I did do a little research to find out where stop signs should be used and where they shouldn't. On Nextdoor, people said we should use that stop sign to slow traffic down. That's not a good reason for a stop sign. Another one is vegetation. We have too much vegetation. We've got too many blind spots. Not a good reason. Let's get the vegetation down. I've even noticed trucks and cars parked on our sidewalks. I mean, these are illegal activities, whether it's speeding, obstruction of the view, whatever it is. But to put a stop sign up, and this is according to the Federal Highway Administration, to warrant it, you should have at least 5 crashes in a 12-month period. We haven't had 5 crashes there. I don't remember there ever being a crash there, but there could have been. Or where the vehicle traffic is 300 per hour for 8 hours continuously. Well, that's the total population of Madeira Beach. I'm sure we don't have that. Or where 2 roadways intersect that have equal quantities of vehicles, and we don't have that. Bayshore doesn't have the same traffic as 140th. So, you know, the reasons that were given on Nextdoor I don't think are adequate. There could be some safety issues, but I think what we really need is enforcement. People are speeding down that road. Let's give a few more tickets. One of the common misuses of stop signs is to control the speed of traffic. But what studies have shown is when people don't think that stop sign is legitimate, they pull up to it and don't make a complete stop, and then they accelerate because they're making up for lost time because they didn't think they should have had a stop sign there to start with. Speed. That is definitely, this was a study done by Fort Collins, Colorado, about, speed used to control the traffic. And finally, the other thing is, a lot of traffic goes down Bayshore because they're trying to avoid Gulf Boulevard. So does that mean we put a stop sign, on 140th and Gulf and slow those people down? No. What it means is those people will take a different route. It just moves the problem around. I think we ought to review this a little more.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Marv Merrill, 581 Crystal Drive. I do think that we need some type of an explanation as to why in the world that stop sign was put there. Just to say that, well, there's a big curve. That curve has been there 60 years. I've driven 140th for 43 years, and I've never seen an accident at that corner. So what kind of study was made to satisfy the commission that a stop sign, four-way stop sign was needed? All of a sudden, out of nowhere, up pops a stop sign. And I think you've got to put more study into it. Did you have one complaint from a resident that caused that to go up? When, as Ray said, there's about 700 homes that use 140th Avenue. And that's supposed to be a thoroughfare to get out to Gulf Boulevard. All of a sudden, you run into a four-way stop at a location that probably coming out of North Bay Shore going south, there are 5 cars in a half an hour that comes out of there. But we're stopping hundreds of cars coming the other direction for safety reasons. And I just don't think you've given enough study to this, and I hope you take another look at it, because a four-way stop certainly does not belong at that particular location. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pricer, do you have any electronic mail to be read into the record?
Yes, sir. We have 5 submissions for public comment this evening.
We can barely hear you.
Is that better, Mr. Mayor?
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay. The first is from Richard Lewis, 561 Crystal Drive, here in Madeira Beach. This concerns the recently installed all-way stop signs recently placed at the intersection of 140th Avenue and North Bay Shore Drive. Requiring a stop for the substantially higher volume of traffic on 140th Avenue achieves no meaningful benefit to the very low volume of traffic entering from North Bay Shore. There has never been a traffic issue at this location in many years of observation, with no significant change in traffic volume for decades. I request you reevaluate the need for this change. Thanks for your consideration, Dick Lewis. Our second submission is from Christina Giovenco of 544 Johns Pass Avenue. The newly erected four-way stop sign needs to be looked at again. A more effective way to slow traffic down and make it safe for residents would be a four-way stop at Island Drive, 140th, and West Parsley Drive. The traffic coming westbound on 140th from the northeastern part of the island is much faster and is often dangerous to turn left onto 140th Avenue from Island Drive. Thank you. Also from Christina Giovenco. The schedule for curbing and paving on the center and northern portions of Johns Pass Avenue continues to be inaccurate. We have watched Lillian Drive and the southern portion of Johns Pass Ave get completed. We have repeatedly asked to reschedule services to our home because Gibbs and Register wanted to minimize road traffic, and then no work is done. Please advise when Johns Pass Avenue will be finished. Thank you. A comment from Paul Kukin, 352 140th Avenue East. I'm requesting that a new Madeira Beach City Code citation under the category of public nuisance be created, which will hold all residential home construction contractors and homeowners responsible to finish and complete all City of Madeira approved permitting of home construction projects within 365 days. The significant citation amount, to be determined, will hold contractors and builders accountable to the homeowner and the city to finish on time, while increasing the City of Madeira Beach's beautification policies and increasing the City of Madeira's yearly property tax revenue. This public nuisance code enforcement will be applied to current and future permitted construction projects and be applied to existing, unfinished, uninhabited residential properties. The Community Development Director, Linda Portal, has been notified of this request and understands its importance and feels it is worth pursuing and worth further discussion to design such a standard with City Manager Robert Daniels. And the last email in public comment is from Candy Maiden. The trash pirates of Madeira Beach are very excited about Project Protect Paradise and the positive impact it will have on our beautiful beach community. We look forward to coordinating efforts. Thank you. That concludes public comment submitted by email, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Pricer.
Mr. Mayor, before we go any further, I actually fumbled. I meant to put the four-way stops. I hear about this every morning at my store, and it's a split about, no disrespect, Bob, it's split about 80% people that are wondering what the heck we're doing, and about 20% the other way. I even think, didn't the thing get ripped out last night? Somebody told me that the one of the stop signs was actually ripped out and thrown on the ground. I don't remember voting on this, guys. I mean, why did the city do, I don't think it got to us. I think we had a workshop where they talked about it. It was supposed to be presented to us, and then a day later, the stop sign's up. I get a lot of people that have come in and they're really irritated about it. So if we could throw that on the workshop, and if these guys want to come back and give their opinions, I think we need to hear about that. And if we got to remove it, we remove it. But Chuck gave some great points. I mean, there's reasons to put a stop sign up, and if we don't meet those reasons and we don't have FDOT approval for it, or we don't meet the requirements, I'm not really sure why it's there. But I would like to at least discuss it so that it's out in front of everybody and we can make a decision on it, okay?
Sure, let's get that on the workshop, Clara. Okay, next on the agenda is Ordinance 2020-10, proposed charter amendment. City Attorney, will you please read the ordinance?
Yes, Mayor, Commissioners. Ordinance 2020-10, an ordinance of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, submitting to the electors of the City of Madeira Beach a proposed amendment to subparagraph E of City Charter Section 3.4, manner of holding elections, to provide that any candidate receiving the highest number of votes cast in an election for an office shall be elected to office, and that if two or more candidates receive an equal and highest number of votes for the same office, that those persons shall draw lots to determine who shall be elected to office, and providing for an effective date. That was a reading of Ordinance 2020-10 by title only.
City Clerk, would you like to talk about this? I think this charter amendment is to clean up some language between the city and Supervisor of Elections Office.
Yes, sir. The City of Madeira Beach voters had voted yes on a charter amendment that was on the March 2019 election ballot to allow the Pinellas County Supervisor of Elections to handle all the canvassing for the City of Madeira Beach elections, and they do not they will not support runoff elections. They follow statutory requirements, a state law that's on the books that provide a process that they follow. And so we have to conform to that. They've asked us to remove the runoff elections from our city charter.
So this is simply a cleanup to get us to conform with state statute.
Yes, sir.
Is there any discussion by the commission? Any public comment?
Mayor Hendricks, I'd like to say something. This is Commissioner Douthat. I really disagree with this, because if you've got three candidates and all of them are in the 30% rate for votes, so if one has 35 or 36%, and that's the top person, they're going to get the position when not the majority of the residents voted for that person, but just because they got 36%, and the next closest one might be 35%. I just think this is really wrong.
Mr. Douthat, this amendment only applies if the exact same number of voters.
No, if it's more than two.
Yeah, it does. It only applies if we have an election where two candidates get the exact same amount of votes, and they happen to be the highest,
then
right? Obviously, if somebody gets 600 votes and two people get 400 votes each, the 600 gets it, right?
What happens if there's three people, and it's happened in the past, that they're, one gets 36%, one gets 35%, and one gets 34%? What happens then?
And 36 wins. that has nothing to do with this ordinance. We cannot have a runoff election in this town. If we choose to use the Pinellas County Election Board to run our elections, and the voters have decided that they want Pinellas County Election Board to do our elections in 2019. So, I mean, if you're advocating that we leave verbiage in our charter that we will never use, and that's against, you know, what the Pinellas County Elections Office will even entertain, then I think we're giving people the wrong idea of how elections will be run in this town. This only happens typically if two people get the same amount of votes.
Is there any public comment on this? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to pass ordinance number 2020-10.
I'll second.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Vice Mayor Andrews?
Yes.
Commissioner Price?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Commissioner Douthard?
No.
Mayor Hendricks?
Yes. Next ordinance is 2020-11. City Attorney, will you please read the next ordinance?
This is ordinance 2020-11, an ordinance of the City of Madera Beach, Florida, submitting to the electors of the City of Madera Beach a proposed amendment to the City Charter, Section 2.2, Board of Commissioners created, qualifications, terms of office, and vacancies, subparagraph B, qualifications and term of office, to change the term of office for district commissioners from 2 to 3 years, and change the term of office for mayor from 3 to 4 years, and providing for an effective date. That was a reading of ordinance 2020-11 by title only.
Is there any discussion by the commission? Is there any public comment on this? Yes, sir.
Merle, 581 Crystal Drive. Look, just had a question on this one. Does this require a referendum? This change?
It requires a charter amendment, which would involve it going on the ballot. So, yes.
It would require
Yep.
a referendum.
And what we're doing tonight is just to put it on the ballot for everyone to vote.
Because, you know, I've seen over the years, we're more than happy to see somebody's term expire at 2 years. Not wait for 4 years or 3 years. And, so I would hope we get a chance to vote on this. Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion to pass ordinance 2020-11.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Commissioner Price?
Yes.
Commissioner Douthard?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Andrews?
Well, I completely agree with Marv. I'm still going to vote yes. Thank you.
Mayor Hendricks?
Yes.
The vote carried 5-0.
Next ordinance is 2020-12. City Attorney, will you please read the ordinance?
Yes, Mayor. Commissioners, ordinance 2020-12, an ordinance of the City of Madera Beach, Florida, submitting to the electors of the City of Madera Beach a proposed amendment to subparagraph A of City Charter Section 3.4, manner of holding elections, to change the term of office for district commissioners from 2 to 3 years, and change the term of office for mayor from 3 to 4 years, providing for the effective date of the new terms of office, and providing for an effective date. That was a reading of ordinance 2020-12 by title only.
Is there any discussion by the by the commission? This is one I'm still scratching my head on why we have it and 2020-11.
Because it's mentioned in two different parts of the charter,
Okay,
That's right.
so we have to vote twice.
okay. Well, that's going to be interesting to see how the vote goes on those two. Is there any other discussion by the commission? Any public comment? Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to pass ordinance 2020-12.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Andrews?
Yes.
Commissioner Price?
Yes,
Commissioner Douthat?
Yes.
Mayor Hendricks?
Yes.
The vote carried 5-0.
Next item is ordinance 2020-16. City Attorney, will you please read the ordinance?
Mayor Commissioners, ordinance number 2020-16, an ordinance of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, calling for a general municipal election on November 3rd, 2020, for placing 6 charter amendments on the ballot for the Madeira Beach voters to decide on, providing for publication, authorizing election expenditures, identifying the Pinellas County Canvassing Board as the canvassing board for the November 3rd, 2020 general election, authorizing for a runoff election if necessary, providing for repeal of ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith to the extent of such conflict, and providing for an effective date. That was a reading of ordinance 2020-16 by title only.
Is there any discussion by the commission? Any public comment? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to pass ordinance number 2020-16.
Second.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Price?
Yes,
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Commissioner Douthat?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Andrews?
Yes.
Mayor Hendricks?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
Next is ordinance 2020-17. City Attorney, will you read the ordinance, please?
Yes, Mayor Commissioners, ordinance 2020-17, an ordinance of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, providing for ballot titles, ballot questions, and text for proposed referendum questions to be placed on the November 3rd, 2020 election ballot, providing for amendments to the charter that the qualifying period for candidates seeking office of mayor or district commissioner shall be the first full 2 weeks in December, that any district commissioner who desires to become a candidate for the office of mayor shall resign his or her office 1 week before the qualifying period, that any candidate receiving the highest number of votes cast in an election for an office shall be elected to office, and that if 2 or more candidates receive an equal or highest number of votes for the same office, that those persons shall draw lots to determine who shall be elected to office, that the term of office for district commissioners be changed from 2 to 3 years, and that the term of office for mayor be changed from 3 to 4 years, that the effective date of the new terms of office shall be March 9th, 2021 for district commissioners and March 14th, 2023 for the mayor, that independent audit provisions that are inconsistent with state law shall be deleted, providing for election date, providing for coordination with the supervisor of elections, providing effective dates, providing for severability, and providing for the repeal of ordinances in conflict. That was a reading of ordinance 2020-17 by title only.
Is there any discussion by the commission? Any public comment? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to pass ordinance number 2020-17.
No second.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Price?
Yes,
Vice Mayor Andrews?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Commissioner Douthat?
Yes.
Mayor Hendricks.
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
Next is ordinance 2020-15.
Mayor, if I may,
Yes.
I just noticed an error in here, in our packet. 7D, which was read out loud, had a clause in there authorizing for a runoff election if necessary. And I was wondering what that pertained to, because we just explained to everybody that runoff elections aren't allowed anymore. And then when I compared ordinance 2020-16 with page 31 of our packet, it's got a different description. So I don't know if we need to re-vote on that. Tom, if you look at page 31.
Page 32, 2020-16.
Yeah. I've got it as page.
Yeah, that's the previous page. This is the ordinance, though. That's the staffing.
Doesn't say anything about.
Yep, it's just a reference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Just making sure.
Yep.
Sorry, go on.
Okay. So are we all good on that one then?
Yes.
Okay. So we were on ordinance 2020-15. City Attorney, will you read the ordinance?
Yes, this is ordinance 2020-15, an ordinance of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, adding City Code Section 34-44 to provide penalties for littering and providing for an effective date. That was the second final reading of ordinance 2020-15 by title only.
Is there any discussion on this by the commission? Is there any public comment? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to pass ordinance 2020-15.
Second.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Vice Mayor Andrews.
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges.
Yes.
Commissioner Douthard.
Yes.
Commissioner Price.
Yes.
Mayor Hendricks.
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
Next is the consent agenda. Does any commissioner want to pull an item for further discussion?
I'll make a motion to pass the consent agenda as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Vice Mayor Andrews.
Yes.
Commissioner Price.
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges.
Yes.
Commissioner Douthard.
Yes.
Mayor Hendricks.
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
And if I may just say thank you to our Public Works Director for reaching out to Seminole and making sure there was no cost for us to store our equipment over there in case of emergencies or in case of a hurricane. I thought that was a really good move. So it was D on the agenda.
Okay, next we move on to unfinished business. Impact fee study and related comprehensive plan amendments. Mr. Miller?
Good morning, good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. For the record, I'm Jerry Murphy with the University of Florida. There's a typo in your agenda packet.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm here to bring you up to date with the progress on the proportionate fair development fees or impact fees that they're commonly referred to. You have a number of items in your agenda packet, and I'm happy to discuss them myself. I believe I have about 15 minutes, and I'll try to use that judiciously, and then take any questions that you may have. I'd like to reserve a little bit of time at the end to get some direction from the commission, if I may. I'd like to direct you specifically to the executive summary of the report, and that is page 3 of 68 in the level of service standards report.
Hang on, Jerry.
Yes, sir.
229.
I'm sorry?
229.
Okay, thank you. I was on the wrong page. Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
This summarizes where we are in terms of the process. I hope that it lays out pretty comprehensively where we've been and where we're going. Basically, your strategic plan directs you to explore impact fees, which we've been doing, and also to provide for transparency with the community. It is my understanding that it is your wish to expedite this process as quickly as possible, and so that's the direction that we're proceeding on unless we hear differently. There's a legal process that you undergo, which basically, with ordinances, is a workshop, a first reading, and a second reading. We're looking at some point later on for direction to expedite through the workshop, basically, and go immediately to first reading, and to possibly schedule those hearings more expeditiously than we would in the general schedule. What we're looking at right now at this point is a comprehensive plan amendment, and this is the ordinance that's in your packet, and this basically modifies and amends the comprehensive plan to adopt level of service standards that are currently either absent, lacking, or out of date. This is, in a sense, the beginning of a much larger evaluation and appraisal process of your comprehensive plan, which is a 7-year update that you do, and your plan is ready to be updated. Many of the elements in your current comprehensive plan touch on the current level of service standards, and in fact there are 5 of them. And so what we've done as part of bringing forward these level of service standards is also to take direction to reorganize the comprehensive plan. One of the reasons harkens back to your earlier discussion of the terms of office. You know, there are level of service standards in several places in the comprehensive plan. In general, they agree, but they don't always, because they've been changed in one section, not changed in another. So part of the reorganization puts all of the level of service standards into the capital improvement element, so that when they're changed in one place. All of the elements that they currently touch on reference to that specific policy. We've also taken the opportunity, because you are moving into the evaluation and appraisal of the comprehensive plan, to improve the language that's in the current comprehensive plan, to make it more accessible and understandable. Through the process of working with this commission, it has often been noted by the commission that the language in the comprehensive plan and in the Code of Ordinances isn't always very understandable. So we've taken the opportunity, since we're in these elements anyway and they're opened up, let's go ahead and try and clear them up. So in terms of that, that basically explains what we've tried to do with the ordinance. There are a number of sort of holding positions, particularly as it relates to the level of service, because we're in the process of combining the data and clarifying it and making sure that we have captured things that are here and not capturing things that have been sold in terms of equipment or facilities. Part of the process then with those comprehensive plan amendments, once they've been through the first reading by the board, is to transmit them for the state, and also to coordinate with the Pinellas County and the neighboring local governments as provided in your intergovernmental cooperation element in your comprehensive plan. The next step after that will be the proportionate share development fees or impact fees, and that's an amendment to the Land Development Code. The comprehensive plan has to be amended first to provide the legal and factual basis for the proportionate share development fees, because they're based on those levels of service. You want to maintain those levels of service over time as the city redevelops, and so new development and redevelopment contribute their proportionate share to the status quo of your level of service, quality of life for the city. And those land development code amendments have to be consistent with the comprehensive plan by law. There is also criteria that we've discussed in the past, and that information is certainly available, both the presentations and the documents, to the new commissioners. Congratulations. With regard to statutory compliance with Florida statutes, section 163.31801, and that's the Florida Impact Fee Act. From the refinement of the level of service standards that are in the ordinance that is part of your package, the draft ordinance is part of your package, those include operations and maintenance, because what we're trying to do in the comprehensive plan is capture the entire level of service that the city provides. Impact fees, however, as they are currently developed through the common law of Florida and through the statute which references the common law, are not allowed to include operations and maintenance costs. As an aside, I would say that it is my hope that many of the local governments in Florida will be lobbying the legislature to expand those provisions given the COVID-19 experience. We are learning that essential personnel are very important. My example is fire trucks don't put out fire. You have to have firemen to man the fire trucks to put out the fire. So hopefully the legislature in their infinite wisdom will consider expanding those criteria, but as they stand currently, you are not allowed to include them. But we're going to bring them into the level of service standards of the comp plan with the proportionate share development fees or impact fees. We may have to eliminate those from the calculation. So as part of the larger EAR process, this is a major timeline. I believe the time for you to transmit your evaluation and appraisal of the comprehensive plan to the state is December of 2022. And because the plan has been sort of pushed along as it stands based on data analysis that goes back to the 20th century, there's a great need for a major update of your comprehensive plan. And so this is kind of a kickoff for that. That's why we're taking the time to go ahead and clean up as much policy language as we can, so that that process becomes a little bit easier, since you'll be looking at all of the elements. I'm happy to announce to you that one of the first things we'll be looking at is your coastal management element. The staff here at the town, with the assistance of the University of Florida, applied for a Department of Environmental Protection resiliency planning grant. That grant has been awarded, and so we'll be able to use those funds to update the coastal management element. That will help to augment the costs of doing the actual evaluation and appraisal process. And that includes peril of flood requirements that were adopted by the legislature in 2015, so that the town addresses sea level rise, engineering standards. There's about 6 different components. And we'll be including that as part of that coastal management element from the DEP grant. The other elements then will be mobility. In this ordinance, we renamed the transportation element to a mobility element. That's kind of a trend around the state, and we're hoping it's a much broader way of looking at transportation and mobility and utilize that. We kicked off on Monday with the Planning Commission, local planning agency, the aspect of adopting a mobility plan, in part based on the Duani plan of 2002 that the city paid $250,000 for and then never did anything with. So we're hoping to extract as much as we can that's relevant from that plan, to use that in the mobility plan, that then will be amended to change your mobility element, again as part of the CAR, but also as part of the basis for a mobility fee, a mobility impact fee. That's pretty much where we're at. We're hoping to bring back these ordinances as quickly as possible, and I can go over the direction I'm looking for now, or I can answer any questions and use my reserved time to go for the direction.
Jerry, how you doing? I got a quick question for you. First of all, you can't see under the mask, but I'm smiling because you said grant and approval, so that's a real good thing. How much was the grant for?
$66,000.
$66,000? Yes, sir. Jerry, can I hug you? I mean, I know it's COVID. That's awesome.
When COVID is gone, yes, sir.
Thank you. That just, I'll tell you what.
We can do a double elbow bump.
That's good, buddy. I'm really glad to hear that. And I'd like to suggest to the board, there's a lot of information to digest here, so we're probably gonna have to do this over a bunch of different meetings. But you know, the one thing I wanted to bring up, and I'm gonna be a little off topic, but not far. I remember when you gave a presentation at the last board, we were talking about the city of Delray Beach for a while, and all of their capital improvements in order to generate new revenue. And I believe, and my math is a little off, but about 8 of their 10 projects that they were doing were all parking garages, correct?
I believe that's not inaccurate.
Yeah, it's somewhere in that general vicinity. And just, because this is a new board here, I don't know if you saw that presentation, but it's a pretty good investment for something that we're looking at. There's a spot that I have in mind that I'd like to chat with you guys about at a separate meeting, but I'm pretty sure that Delray Beach is pretty happy that they did that.
Yes, sir, and just as a caveat to that discussion, that was part of my presentation to you about a community redevelopment area and agency.
Perfect.
We're not pursuing at this point.
Okay, cool. No, yeah, I thought it was really interesting when you brought it up that time, and I've been kind of, since you said that, I've been kind of scouring the city looking for spots that we could possibly do that on our land, so.
And the manager has directed us as part of the mobility plan to look at the idea of a parking garage.
Cool.
And hopefully we'll be pursuing a request to Pinellas County under the Forward Pinellas.
Excellent.
For a grant to explore the financial feasibility of a parking garage.
Very cool, very cool. Yeah, I'll chat with you after. I can point you to a couple of locations that I thought of and maybe see where you're at with it. But thank you, Jerry, I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
It's probably down by that 7-Eleven for all the customers that come into your place.
Well, that was one. No.
So I have a question.
Yes, Commissioner.
I know you're meeting with the Planning Commission pretty quickly or pretty soon. After that, should we be jumping on and getting onto that workshop? Then does it fall into the Commission's lap to get moving? Because I think we all want to see this moved along pretty quickly. And
that's part of the direction that I'm going to request when my reserve time is back, but actually we're going to ask direction to expedite it, and I've got some sort of criteria that I'd like you to.
Okay, good. All right. I will wait till then.
Okay. Director Potel, I'm sure I know your answer on this, but is your recommendation for this?
Yes, our recommendation is to that you direct us to move forward. We do have a general timeline to get you through adopting the levels of service and the amendments to the comp plan, so we can then come back to you with the actual impact fee study. We have to have one in place in order to do the other, and we are asking that you direct us to move forward, to send this section back to the Planning Commission for hearing, their official public hearing in September, and that we are able then to come back to you for first reading of the topic, either at the end of September in a special meeting or the 1st of October in your regular meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Then we would overlap, and we're already beginning the mobility and the level of service detail review with the Planning Commission. We'll be workshopping that again with them, and then coming back to them in October for their public hearing, so that we could hopefully get the impact fees back to you at the end of this year.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion by the Commission? Is there any public comment? Is there a motion?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, we're really just looking for direction at this point, and if I can, I'll kind of go through the direction that we're looking for, and you can modify it amongst yourselves. The first would be to direct forward the level of service ordinance to the local planning agency, Planning Commission in September for review and recommendation. Secondly, to direct the level of service ordinance for first reading and transmittal hearing contemporaneous to the Board of Commissioners workshop date in September. third is to direct the draft mobility plan and fee ordinance to the local planning agency, Planning Commission, in October for review and recommendation, and to expedite forward through the city's procedures with all deliberate speed. And the fourth would be to advertise and provide notice of the mobility fee ordinance in accordance with Florida Statute Section 163.31801, Florida Statute Section 163.31801, the Florida Impact Fee Act.
And Mr. Mayor, that last piece is very important because there is a 90-day notice that has to be made for the public anytime a local government intends to change or adopt impact fees. So we'd like to move ahead with notifying the public so that the rest of that schedule will fall in place for you.
Okay, but Mr. City Attorney, I would think we need to take a vote on this, though, for approval to move ahead.
So you can do it one of two ways. Obviously, you can do that vote. The staff recommendation, I would treat Mr. Murphy as your consultant staff person. You can move his recommendation in that chronology of events. Or if you want to do it by consensus, my suggestion is do it by a vote so that we have something in the record as to exactly what has happened. But the key here is that we're basically skipping one step, and that to move it along, and that step is a lengthy discussion at a work session. It would go right to the first reading after the recommendation comes back from the LPA. So, and I know that the Vice Mayor had said, well, we're going to hear this and see this a couple of more times before we actually do anything with it. And I just want some clarity there so that you understand what Mr. Murphy and Linda are asking for, and I'm asking for, is this direction on that path, so that we don't have a whole bunch of impediments of work sessions, one right after the other, before we get to the actual meeting. But it's your direction that we're seeking tonight.
Okay.
So whatever you feel like you're doing, but that is the recommendation from Mr. Murphy. And if you want to move staff recommendation and treat Mr. Murphy as the staff at this point, you can just say that for your motion.
Okay. Is there any public comment? Is there a motion to move this forward?
I'll try. I'd like to make a motion to move forward with the direction of pursuing impact fees with the four-step plan that was proposed by our staff consultant.
That's good.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Price?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Commissioner Douther?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Andrews?
Yes.
Mayor Hendricks?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
Next is,
Thank you, Commissioners.
Absolutely.
next is 9B, which was, let's see, 11F. Review of original draft fraud examination report and supplementary information. Is there any discussion by the commissioners?
Well, I have to admit, I did not take the draft fraud examination report of October and then the, I guess, draft fraud examination report of the next one and compare it with the final one that we got in January where fraud wasn't even mentioned. So I apologize, but I really didn't make that comparison. I'm hoping that Commissioner Andrews did.
Yeah, I kind of looked at it a little bit. I would like to comment on it. I may go a few minutes over my, not a lot, but a few minutes over my allotted time, if that pleases the board, okay? There's a lot to discuss on this real quick.
That's fine, Doug.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, you know, I'll tell you, this is pretty damning. First, you need to thank Patrick for actually providing this stuff because, like I said, this could have ended up easily in his garbage can, and we would have never been able to talk about this. And there's no secret that I've spent a lot of time and energy on this issue over the last couple of years. But if you've all listened, I've never really had any problems with the Cars and Rigs group. That was never my issue. The only thing I ever questioned there was if we were really looking for a forensic examination, which is what we were told we were getting, which is kind of a fancy way of saying it was a business analysis, why would we have ever hired an auditor and a former deputy sheriff to perform it? It made no sense. And it all kind of now falls into play here as we look at these things. You know I should feel vindicated that I had this right all along, but this was just a fraud investigation designed to humiliate or arrest a guy who truthfully testified against a sitting commissioner. That statement should now be undisputed. I guess what I'm really angry about, though, is the amount of lying and deceit and conclusion and cover-up that included everybody, from commissioners to mayors to city managers to charter officers to information officers to staff. It was an infection at all levels, and then we pushed it upon the press to push it out. And it went unchecked. So if you still have doubts, all I ask you to do, look at the document on page 376. Okay. And Commissioner Price just alluded to this. It's dated October 30th, 2018. On page 376, you see it right there in broad letters, fraud examination and supplementary information. If you look at the subsequent pages of that draft, okay, go by the executive summary, every page says fraud examination report. If you really want to get entertained, look at some of Patrick's notes on it as he went through it. Take your next look. Look at page 429. This one as well says, I'm sorry, I just missed it. Fraud examination report and supplemental information, dated January 2nd, 2019. You look at the subsequent pages after that, same thing. Right after the executive summary, fraud examination report, fraud examination report, fraud examination report. We're getting the gist of it now. Then you turn to page 498 after all of those Google pictures of the marina. And then all of a sudden on page 498, you're looking at a forensic examination report and supplementary information, okay? It's amazing. 12 days, in 12 days it went from a fraud examination to a forensic examination with no new information. You guys watched a few months ago when I questioned Walter Pierce about this. And we all know he was very uncomfortable discussing the subject, and now we know why. He also stated that when he signed that NDA back in October, he said, when I said October fraud exam, he said that must have been a misprint. He stated that this was never a fraud examination, that nothing ever rose to the level of fraud. And remember, this was the man who was the catalyst for this whole thing, or at least that's what we were told. His story about the auditor, John Hauser, and why it started was never confirmed. In fact, Mr. Hauser said on December 17, 2019, in front of the Board of Commissioners, the initial intent of the audit was to find fraud, but instead was an unfair examination at the cost of $50,000. Okay, and we wonder why Mr. Hauser didn't want his name attached to it, and we wonder why Walter was feeling uncomfortable discussing it. Okay, remember. Okay, and Commissioner Hodges remembers this, and Commissioner Douthert also remembers this better than we do. The only time the Board of Commissioners ever spoke about this aloud was when Jonathan Evans came asking for more money, okay? Which, by Walter Pierce's own admission, the money was committed way before the project started, okay? Hence the reason we only got an oral report for the first $15,000 worth of work. And the evening he asked for more money, the only conversation on the board that night was Commissioner Hodges asking, what was this about? Then they voted, not a word about fraud, not one word about fraud, no questions from the other board members, no workshop, just a 4-1 vote in favor of approving the additional money for the marina audit, which is still what it was called at the time. What does that tell you? So that means all the discussions about this were behind closed doors and included everybody but Commissioner Hodges, it appears. And people wonder why I don't have closed doors meetings to discuss agendas with the city manager. I think all this stuff needs to be discussed in public. This is the public funds. Anyway, I don't know if you remember, if anybody was I know a couple of people here were at the town hall. I was asked numerous times by a few people what businesses of mine to look at it. Just leave it alone and move on. It looks pretty apropos now why it happened. let's also look back. The audit was delivered to the citizens, it was delivered to the city in October, okay? In November, I asked an open meeting where it was. Then City Manager Evans, in front of the commission, said it was in the clerk's office because she was verifying it, okay? Clara, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Were you verifying anything at the time?
Sometime toward the end of I have an email.
Okay.
Former city manager Jonathan Evans came into my office and told me that they completed the audit, and he wanted to keep it in draft form, and that a couple commissioners had asked that he hold somebody accountable, and said that he needed me to certify some statements from the auditor, and I explained to him that I was not working for the city at that time, and I didn't know anything about it. I would have to do some research, and he told me, he asked me to research a certain period of time, and so that's what I did.
Yep, thank you. No, and remember, folks, you know, the citizens paid for this report. It was delivered to the city in October, and the taxpayers didn't see it until January. And then I know that Commissioner Price was there, and I think some other folks were there as well. This was then presented to the public, and all we heard were more and more lies. We were allowed to ask questions, but only each on a written card with no follow-up questions. It was a farcical performance worthy of this investigation. So, you know, this is the final verdict. I mean, question me if you'd like, but we had a majority of the Board of Commissioners complicit in using public funds to try to settle a vendetta against a 17-year city staff member, all because he truthfully testified against a commissioner who was found guilty, among other things, licking the face of the city manager. We also watched then City Manager Evans show up at that courtroom during the trial with his assistant and the city information officer, sit right behind Commissioner Oakley's table and stare down and try to intimidate Captain Marsicano when he was on the stand. I was there. I saw it with my own eyes. And then immediately when Dave got done testifying, he went on the elevator. The three of them jumped on the elevator with him once his testimony was over. Again, something I witnessed with my own eyes. You know, we had an alleged fraud report, which this is clearly what this was now. Please don't anybody come up here, no, this was a fraud report. It was delivered to us in October that couldn't produce fraud, okay? So instead of singling what should have been the end of the investigation, if you're doing a fraud investigation, you don't find fraud, should be over, right? The objective wasn't met. No, what they did is then they started a smear investigation on a neighboring property, which we'll dub the Holton property at the time, during which they slandered our friends at the Old Salt and grossly violated the separation agreement between the city and former city manager, by speaking of him disparagingly, talking about the tone at the top. And they also continued to peck away at Captain Marsicano. Look at the combatants in this. The people they went after were Shane Crawford, who filed the suit against Commissioner Oakley, Dave Marsicano, who testified against Commissioner Oakley, the president of the Old Salt and his top lieutenant, who both testified against Commissioner Oakley. I'm no detective, but it's pretty easy to draw a circle around this and see why this subsequent investigation occurred. And oh, by the way, the Holton property had absolutely nothing to do with the forensic examination of a marina audit, okay? So it's beyond me how it went that far, okay? Let's talk to the end. Captain Marsicano resigned after being brought in by City Manager Evan and confronted by the auditors at the time, and they called him a thief. He knew what the report was going to say about him, so he tendered his resignation, okay? And as we see, they called him a thief, and no fraud was ever found, okay? Then when the dust settled and the stigma of the $550,000 being missing was proven to be a bunk, we went out and looked for the city manager. We got a new city manager, and they started looking for a marina director. Captain Marsicano put in his application and wasn't even afforded an interview and was passed over for a parking supervisor with no marina experience. At the end, at the end of this, the city manager can certainly respond to why Dave was never spoken to about this position. I'm done, almost done, guys. Bottom line, I dove into this partly because I was sick of watching the city being run so disgracefully, in part because Dave is a respected former colleague of mine. I didn't really expect to find what I found. In short, it's also the reason why I ran for office. While it's satisfying to be right, exposing people for their heinous acts, there really is no end game. Think about this. Our elected officials improperly use taxpayer money to try to settle in a vendetta against a city employee for blowing the whistle on one of them. Prove me wrong. And all this comes a week after we announced the millage rate is going up. I don't know if anybody wants to repeat the words, the marine audit was the best money this city has ever spent. My suggestion not my direction, my suggestion, I repeat, not my direction, is we try to do whatever we can to lure Captain Marsicano back, and maybe he can stop and fix the failed experiment nightmare we are living at the marina right now. Since we had a chat yesterday during that civil service meeting of how bad employee morale is at the city currently, how do you think they're going to feel when they find out one of their own was run out of town for blowing the whistle on the very people that are elected to protect them? Bringing Dave back would be a win-win for all of us, and something I hope this administration considers quickly. Beyond that, guys, these reports is a real black eye for a great city, and shame on those responsible. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Andrews. Is there any public comment on this? Bob?
Robert Preston, 425 South Bayshore Drive, Madeira Beach. I didn't talk to Commissioner Andrews about what he was going to say tonight. And I have been in favor of bringing Captain Marsicano back for the longest time because I felt he was treated badly, just horribly. They tried to ruin the man, is what they tried to do. And I felt that was just totally unfair. Prior to this event, I was able to talk with Mr. Marsicano in different occasions, working on city projects. I've seen him at the marina, and I always found him to be helpful and knowledgeable about the things that I had my questions about. And I truly hope that you consider bringing him back as the marina director. He's a very good man. He deserves to have his good name given back to him that the city so wrongly took away from him. They abused him and used him. And for one, as a citizen of the city, I would really like to see Mr. Marsicano come back. He's a good man. He's knowledgeable about the city. And you never know, he may be able to pull some of those people back that we lost, the commercial fishermen, the charter boat operators and stuff like that, because he's well known in the community. And he's well liked by most. Thank you very much.
Mike Noble, 158 131st. I agree with Vice Mayor Andrews. I think that whole thing was an abomination with Captain Dave being run out of town. The marina before he got there was a crack house. It was overgrown with Brazilian pepper trees, sunken boats. Captain Dave came in, cleaned it up, did a fabulous job. I don't know all the details of everything, but I know his health. He was stressed out beyond belief, and the city put him through hell. It was not fair at all. He did turn the marine around, got a clean marine status, went through the construction, new projects. I would love to see the city right a wrong and bring Captain Dave Marsicano back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stand up anyway. It's cold back there. Reese Noren, 363 Medallion Boulevard, still your closest neighbor.
We can't quite hear you, Reese. Can you pull it to you a little bit?
Is that better? Okay. You don't need my name again, do you? Okay, again, there's good news and there's bad news. The good news is that this cannot be addressed in detail in 3 minutes. But there's a lot more good news. The good news is I agree with everything the commissioner said. I agree with everything my neighbors said, and I have a little more to add. This was never, ever a request for an audit from the people who made the requesting. It was always a request to find criminal wrongdoing on the part of people who were accusing one of their cronies of misdeeds. That's what this was all about. So it was a scam from the get-go. When they didn't find any criminal wrongdoing, what they asked CRI to do was to change their view of the topic. So they did. Instead of calling it a fraud investigation, they told you what it wasn't. And what it wasn't was an audit. It was not an audit. An audit was not requested. An audit was not received. And CRI did not say it was an audit. In the final product, which agrees with the second draft document that you have there, they put the paragraph in there saying that it was not an audit. So you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to figure it wasn't an audit. It said so in the final product. And it wasn't an audit because the city didn't request an audit and they didn't receive an audit. And I think I got this done in less than 3 minutes. But it really is a scar on the city that such a thing happened. One of the citizens said, "Why are you digging this all up for, it's past, let's move on to the future." I'm all in favor of not living in the past. I think we should look towards the future, but at the same time, we cannot ignore the wrongdoing that was done. And I think whatever steps can be made, if it's bringing Dave back, that's fine. Whatever can be done to help rectify those who were hurt should be done. Thank you.
Thank you, Reese. Is there any other comment? Okay. Do I have a motion on this? Do we want to vote on this to pass it on so that we continue with this and get this draft finished up so that we can publish it?
Actually, in light of this new information that we just got, let me rewrite or look again at those last couple of paragraphs, because that was a concern of some of our citizens, and I'll put something together and
okay. Well,
we can add that to the next. It won't take long. I'll shoot it to the clerk and let her circulate.
Okay, City Clerk, 11. Well, what is now 9B? Can we move that to the next meeting for further discussion? Or do you want to take it to the workshop? Put it on the workshop for August? Yes. Okay, next is contracts and agreements. FY 2021 Gulf Beaches Library Agreement. Do any commissioners have any comments on this?
there anyone here that wants to talk? Is the director here or anybody?
No, I mean, I read their letter. I mean, this is great. Have we heard anything back from the library? That's the only question. Letter met every terms that we talked about, right?
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor and Commissioners and Vice Mayor, no, I have not heard anything back from the library.
Okay, I will say I have heard from another city that other cities are joining suit with Madeira Beach on this. So everyone's feeling the squeeze, and everybody needs to do their share, including the library. So for my part, I am against signing the contract as it stands now until they get back with us.
I think we actually voted on that the last time, didn't we? Or no, it never even came to motion. No one made a motion to approve the library budget, so I guess it's just going to hang there until we get a new one.
So I would say we move this item to the next commission meeting and wait to hear from the library.
Well, why don't we just let it lie until we hear from the library?
Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Remember what that term is.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to let the commissioners know, Andrew and I have gone with the reduced amount for our budget purposes. The situation on the actual agreement, whether they modify it or not, I think the direction from the commission was clear that you don't want to go over that amount, and I think it was like $70,044 roughly, if I recall.
That's correct. Yes.
So that's what we're planning on doing.
So I would say we table this until we hear back from the library.
You just need a motion to table then. You don't need to specifically say when it comes back. On a motion to table, it's an uncertain term. A motion to postpone would be to a certain date.
Okay.
So just a motion to table.
Do I have a motion to table?
I will make a motion to table the approval of the fiscal year 2021 Gulf Beaches Library Agreement. Second.
City Clerk, we have a second. Let's wait a few minutes till Commissioner Andrews gets back, so we can take a vote on it. Run, Doug. Oh, you're waiting on me? Don't have a heart attack on us now. We've got EMS in here then. We are voting on whether or not to table Gulf Beaches Library Agreement.
Yes, table
And
it.
we've got a second, so we're going to take a vote on it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Price?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Commissioner Douthat?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Andrews?
Yes.
Mayor Hendricks?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
Next is new business. Mr. Trask, will you please introduce Special Magistrate Lien 12A?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So in your packet today is a memorandum from me. It is asking for your authority to accept $5,000 in return for a release on the property located at 14,001 Marguerite Drive. The background on this is that I'd received a telephone call from First American Title. They were asking for a payoff on 2 special magistrate liens. One magistrate lien was entered in 2009 and one was entered in 2015. The first one was for failure to maintain grass and landscaping. I believe the second one was failure to maintain a fence. The person that was reaching out was saying that the property owner wants to sell the property and wanted a payoff on those 2 liens. I provided the payoff to her, and you'll note in the memorandum that the payoffs were extremely high. One was for $414,000 and the other was $366,000. The direct result of the property not having been brought into compliance. I told the title agent that we would not consider fine reduction until the property was brought into compliance, and therefore they took whatever efforts is to get it into compliance.
Yep.
It is in compliance now. This is being brought to you as an offer of settlement in the amount of $5,000. The reason I'm suggesting that you accept this is that this is homesteaded property, and pursuant to your code, section 2-378 in the Florida statute 162.09, any liens associated with code enforcement cannot be attached to homesteaded property. So in theory, these are unenforceable liens against this property. So $5,000 in return for unenforceable liens on this particular property, I think, is probably a very good settlement. And so that's the reason why I'm suggesting that you accept the offer of $5,000. Now, just so that you understand, if this person owned other non-homesteaded real property, it would attach to it. We're not aware of any other non-homesteaded real property, and we're not aware of any other personal property that the person has that you would be able to seek recovery from either. So we think that this is a good settlement if you were willing to do it. The attorney has advised me that he's waiting in the wings and he will deliver a check tomorrow for $5,000 in return for the release. If you don't want to accept the offer and you want to make a counteroffer, I'd be happy to take that back. My experience in dealing with these in other cities is that anywhere in the $3,500 to $5,000 range is probably a good area, because that was what it would cost for an attorney to file suit to basically nullify these liens or ask the court to enter a declaratory judgment that they're not valid liens against the property. So that's why I think $5,000 is acceptable. So I'm here to answer any questions that you have, but otherwise I would just need a motion to authorize the settlement.
Mr. Trask, were these people living at that property?
Yes.
So I don't personally know whether they're living. I do know that when I did my research at the property appraiser's records, it specifically listed as homesteaded property. I don't know the lady personally, and I don't know the home personally. That's the research that I found. So maybe Commissioner Price knows more than I do about the actual resident being there, but it is listed as homesteaded property.
Thank you.
Well, that is very disappointing to hear that. Now, is that like a Florida law that we cannot attach a lien to homesteaded property?
It's in your code, section 2-378.
I know, but I mean, other than our code.
It's also a state statute, 162.09. That also prohibits the lien from attaching to homesteaded property.
Well, then shame on us for letting this go for 11 years.
No kidding.
I mean, my word.
But
I was ready to come in here and really prove to you guys that I am indeed the meanest person on this.
Well,
because
me too.
I was going to rail on this one. A 99% discount on her. I mean, I cannot believe we didn't do this. This woman ignored, thumbed her nose at this city for 11 years. But that's part of the reason we're even talking about a four-way stop.
I sincerely question whether or not this property has actually been homesteaded, because I know exactly where that property it is. It's near where I live, and it's been an eyesore for I don't know how many years, way before 11 years, and I question whether or not anybody's lived there, because I've walked around the house, looked in the windows, because I was going to try to find out who owned it so that I could try to buy the property.
Well, the neighbors, when I was campaigning, everybody in a 10-house radius, first words out of their mouth was, what are you going to do about that rat trap over there? And more than one person gave me the lowdown on her, and apparently she was living there, according to the neighbors. They all advised me, don't go to that door. But I did. I put my hand tag on. No one came to the door, but, God, this is sickening.
No, well, I don't think that's anywhere near a reasonable offer. Now, I'm surprised that you've got that.
Well, then for $5,000, the attorney's just going to file a lawsuit. A little bit of his time and $400 will get you that, and then we won't get anything, right?
Bird in hand.
I know.
Take the money, throw a company picnic or something.
So this means that
Raises.
anybody that lives in his house, he can just ignore.
No, I think we need to start.
Yeah.
I think we need some answers on how this happened so long. We have code enforcement.
So it's a matter of not pursuing the collection of special magistrate liens. That's how it got this far along. And so you've taken a different path, though, now.
Yeah.
You have hired this other attorney, Matt Widener. And Matt is very good at collecting these types of liens and so forth when they're not homesteaded property. He would tell you the same thing that I'm telling you right now, that it is homesteaded and it's not collectible against this particular property. So we would have forced the issue, and in the worst case scenario, not collecting any money, we would go into court and ask a circuit court judge to enter an injunctive order requiring her to make to cut the grass and to clean up the landscaping and so forth. That evidently never occurred either in the past. So
The city did it a couple of times.
It's done now.
I know it's done now. A lady across the street called me.
Yeah, the reason it's done now is just because I told them we would not consider this until it was brought into compliance.
Can we condition we'll say, okay, we'll take the $5,000 settlement as long as she in fact does move and sell the property?
Well, so the answer is yes. I mean, if you want to condition the $5,000 on it being sold, and if it's not sold within a certain period of time, that it would revert back to its original dollar amount. But there is a closing pending.
Okay.
And I have seen the contract.
Maybe somebody will buy it and do something nice with it.
Yeah. Someone will clean it up, and
Yeah, Andrew, I've got one quick question. This isn't in the budget as far as accounts receivable or anything like that, right?
I can check on that, but I highly doubt it.
I can't imagine $414,000 be sitting there on somebody that hasn't paid for 11 years, right?
It's $781,000 with the two of them.
Oh, right, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's all.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to definitely assume then that wouldn't be in the budget. Okay.
I don't think we have an 11-year receivable.
You wouldn't think, right? Okay, thank you.
All right.
Amazing.
I'm going to make a motion that we offer Donna L. Statuick of 14001 Marguerite Drive, $5,000, or that she give us $5,000, excuse me, for forgiveness of her property liens.
That's happy, excuse me a second, but let me ask for public comment first.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Is there any public comment on this?
I guess this is kind of my question that I had. Robert Preston, 425 South Bayshore Drive, Madeira Beach, sorry. Earlier about the attorney that's working on the liens, I was kind of wondering, how's it been working? Are we getting anything from it, or whatever the case may be? I find it pretty interesting. The property isn't worth what the lien is. So it's kind of gone way overboard, so we're really not addressing some of these issues. And I guess the other question is what can the city do in a situation like this when it's homesteaded? I'm homesteaded. You probably are too, right?
Well, he just told us we have to go to court and ask a judge to file an injunction and make the person.
Or just make them
wrong.
clean it up, right?
Yeah,
But you're still not gonna get any money. You just
Correct.
make them clean it up.
right, or who knows?
So, we haven't been doing these things as a city. I got a person right next to me that's kind of the same way. The house is falling apart, there's weeds growing everywhere, and, you know, it's a mess. But I'm glad to see that this is coming to light, people realize what's going on, and that we can address some of these properties that are in the city. The mayor spoke about some of those other properties, like if you go on Gulf Boulevard, there's been one, the construction site zone that's been, that's south of the real estate office with the fence around it. It's just a mess. You know, is there any liens associated with keeping that place clean? You know, so thank you very much for doing this, and I think $5,000 is better than a goose egg. Thank you.
Well, it's definitely something we need to get corrected on the books. Okay, do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion again. I'll make a motion that we accept the $5,000 offer to clear the liens on, or remove the liens on the property at 14001 Marguerite.
I'll second.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Price?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Andrews?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Commissioner Douthat?
Yes.
Mayor Hendricks?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
Thank you.
City Manager, will you please present the next item? Mr. Daniels, are you still with us?
I can handle this, Mayor, if you'd like.
Okay, please.
Okay, so Mayor, before you is Resolution 2020-13, which I will read by title only in just a moment. The resolution is for the purpose of designated authorized signers for banking documents for the city. The previous resolution was issued in 2004, and it had the old city manager, Jill Silverboard, the old city clerk, Denise Schlegel, the old finance director, Monica Mitchell, and the old community services director, Michael Maximo. Because of the fact that there is now a new city manager, there is now a new finance director, and there is also a new human resources manager, there is a need to adopt a resolution that would set forth those parties. And let me just list them again. Robert Daniels, the city manager, accounting manager Patrick Cade, finance director Andrew Laughlin, and human resources manager Karen Paulson, all of which will become signers on the account. So this resolution will allow them to do that, change from the old ones that are no longer in existence to the new ones. I'll read that resolution by title only. Resolution 2020-13, a resolution of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, designating authorized signers of banking documents for the City of Madeira Beach by repealing Resolution 04.11 and any other resolution in conflict herewith, and by providing for an effective date. That was the reading of Resolution 2020-13 by title only. You can see as an attachment is Exhibit A. This is the place where these individuals will sign. This resolution will be provided to whoever is requesting that signature information, whether it's our bank or other investment companies. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions if you have any.
Tom, I have a quick question. Who's been our signing authority since, all these people have been gone for a long time. Who's had the signing authority since then? Just Walt?
I assume so, Vice Mayor.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that question, but I assume it was Walt.
Okay. Okay. All right, cool. I'm fine. This is just cleaning this up, so.
Yeah.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, if I can answer?
There you go.
Yes, sir.
I think I overcame the technical problems I was having. What had happened, I wasn't aware that there was a resolution requirement. Clara had made me aware of that. And so when we researched it with Tom, I guess that requirement wasn't followed previously. So that's why there's a change where people I don't even know or on the signature cards. But to answer your question, the signatures on the account were Walt, Patrick, Karen, and then myself. I signed a signature card when I came on board.
Any other discussion by the commission? Is there any public comment? Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to pass Resolution 2020-13.
Second.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Vice Mayor Andrews?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Commissioner Price?
Yes.
Commissioner Douthat?
Yes.
Mayor Hendricks?
Yes.
The motion carries 5-0.
Next item is resolutions dissolving advisory boards. Mr. Daniels, will you present this, please?
Yes, going from our discussion that we had previously at the workshop meeting, there was direction from the board to look at dissolving the boards with the exception of the Planning Commission and the Civil Service Commission. So I got with Mr. Trask and we prepared the resolution that's in front of you.
Is there any discussion by the commission?
Yeah, I would just like to explain to our city that this was done partly at the request of some members that said they were showing up for board meetings and they were the only one there. We also found that many times, that extra step in there of waiting for a review committee or budget committee or bid review or anything, it just slowed the process down so much we weren't getting business done. So it really wasn't effective, and people weren't showing up. So I think we all agreed that this is something we had to do.
Is there any other discussion by the commission? Is there any public comment? Is there a motion?
I need to read the first resolution, Mayor, by
Okay.
title only, and then we'll do the second one on a separate vote.
All right.
Thank you. So the resolution 2020-14, I'll read it by title only, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, terminating the existence of a bid review committee, repealing resolution 2017-06, which established a bid review committee from the electors of the City of Madeira Beach, repealing resolution 2017-08, which amended the number of members for the bid review committee, and providing for an effective date hereof. That was the reading of resolution 2020-14 by title only.
Okay, is there a motion on this resolution?
I'll make a motion that we pass resolution 2020-14 dissolving the bid review committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Price?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Commissioner Douthat?
No.
Vice Mayor Andrews?
Yes.
Mayor Hendricks?
Yes.
The motion carried 4-1.
Okay, I'll read the next resolution. This is 2020-15, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, terminating the existence of a budget review committee, repealing resolution 2017-05, which established a budget review committee from the electors of the City of Madeira Beach, repealing resolution 2017-09, which amended the number of members for the budget review committee, and providing for an effective date hereof. That was the reading of resolution 2020-15 by title only.
Is there any discussion by the commission?
I'll make the resolution to pass,
I need to ask for public comment first,
okay,
please.
go ahead.
Is there any public comment on this? Okay.
Okay. I'll make the offer to pass resolution 2020-15.
I'll second.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Andrews?
Yes.
Commissioner Price?
Yes.
Commissioner Douthat?
No.
Mayor Hendricks?
Yes.
The motion carries 4-1.
Next is Resolution 2020-16. City Manager, will you please present this item?
Yes. Bear with me just 1 minute. This item has to do with the special exemption that we gave as a special use permit for an event in the city, and obviously getting the businesses open, looking at the restrictions that they had by way of seating indoors and allowing these businesses to occupy the right-of-way in front of their stores was really a gesture that we all wanted to make between staff and the commission to help them succeed. The original provision, the original resolution called for a 90-day period. It was actually 30-day increments, where at each 30 days, I would have the opportunity to renew the resolution, as which I did. And we face the 90 days, I believe, tomorrow. So I wanted to make sure we had it on the agenda and to see if the commission wanted to proceed. And it would be my recommendation that we proceed the similar resolution for another 90 days with the 30-day incremental changes in case something happens and we go to phase 3 or something and there's more seating allowed indoors.
Thank you. Is there any discussion on this by the commission? Are there any public comments on this? Is there a motion?
I make a motion to pass Resolution 2020-16.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mayor, I need to read that by title only.
Okay.
Resolution 2020-16, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Madeira Beach, Florida, extending the citywide special event permit granted in Resolution 2020-09 in 30-day increments not to exceed 90 days and providing for an effective date. That was reading Resolution 2020-16 by title only. Thanks.
I make a motion. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I make a motion to pass Resolution 2020-16.
Second.
City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Vice Mayor Andrews?
Yes.
Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Commissioner Douthat?
Yes.
Commissioner Price?
Yes.
Mayor Hendricks?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
Next is City Hall addition. Director Portel, will you please proceed with this?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Just to let you know, we also have Frank DeSantis, the building official, here to answer specific questions about the proposal. And earlier today, we provided I see you have them, an expanded version of the floor plan and an updated version of the floor plan as well. The original that was in your packet, which was all that was available when we were putting the item together, does not include additions for enclosing the stairwell, which if you use the back stairwell, you will recognize is actually a hazard a good portion of the year, and also provision of parking for the golf carts and other such things. So what's being proposed is the enclosure of the ground floor of the west wing of the existing City Hall to provide additional space that we, as staff, regularly, desperately need. We are meeting all over the place because of a lack of meeting space. We're using the existing staff conference room as the production and operations room for building and planning because we don't have anything like that here. There's also no storage for our large maps and plans and files. We've got them wedged into the mechanical room. And obviously, additional space would just provide both the commission and the existing staff an opportunity to get people out of shared cubicles. We actually have our consultants and our temporary people sharing one cubicle. Sometimes I have to move a planner out of the way to allow our consulting engineer to work for a while they share a single spot. So we have a number of needs for space, and we are proposing closing in underneath the west wing, and to do so in a manner that makes the enclosure flood-proofed, because I'm sure everybody has the question, how can you do that? Non-residential space in the A zone can be enclosed as long as it is built for flood-proofing, just like you see in CVS or any of the other enclosed on-the-ground commercial buildings. And so the proposal that you have in front of you includes a recommended floor plan, the details of which, of course, we would work out over time. But the expense of the work would be done entirely with the use of building funds. It would not involve general funds at all. The building fund, for those who in the public maybe who are listening and don't understand, building fund is collected off of permit work that the building department does, and it can be used by state law only for activities supporting that building code work. So what we would propose is that the building department would build that out downstairs, and then would leave room for planning and the planning-oriented engineering functions that integrate with building codes and review, and also for code enforcement. That would provide us also with the confidentiality we have to deal with some planning issues. Some things that we do are not subject to sunshine, but we've had some trouble with keeping all of our records secured when we've got them sitting out in hallway files. And so we have some broad estimates on the work. I'm going to have ask Mr. DeSantis to talk to you about that, and we do also have an update on what is estimated to be in the building fund at this time.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Just to follow up what Director Portell was saying, I worked with the architect on the plans. We ran the numbers 2 different times in 2 different softwares to get these numbers, but we came up with $725,000 for the construction cost. Okay, and that's corner-to-corner construction cost. And then we figured a $50,000 for FF&E, which is furnishings, fixtures, and equipment. So we're looking at $775. Okay. Do you have any questions for me on that?
What scares me about that is we got an estimate of $7.5 million on the Crystal Isle project. But Frank, if we do this, are we looking? Is this just for Madeira Beach? Are you looking? Is this just what we need now? How about future needs? Is that going to cover future needs? And if so, in growing the building department, are we looking at possibly any kind of consolidation with other city governments to where we're serving functions of their small cities to where we can incorporate that to bring in more revenue?
That's a possibility down the road. There is more than enough room going downstairs, as you can see by the square footage that we have right now that we're using. And that doesn't include the shared space that we're using up here, break room, restroom, stuff like that.
You've got to quit coming over wanting to use my dining room table.
You understand.
It's off limits.
But yeah, the possibility of expanding is definitely there for that. As Director Portell said, the building department fund is right now at $983,000. So there's more than enough to cover this project. And again, it would all come out of the building department funds, not Fund 1. Okay?
Frank,
thank you.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Frank, I don't see a Board of Commissioners lounge in this drawing. I'll
work something out.
There you go. No, look, I think this is a great idea. This doesn't, and This doesn't affect our general fund at all.
Nope.
This is money Frank has in the building fund that needs to be used for something building related, right?
Yeah.
And I think if we don't do this and FEMA changes their guidelines, we may be stuck with an empty bottom here. And, and like I said, who knows what's going to happen with the building department over the years. He may grow at some point. We might be all built out. We might have to decrease. But we have the stuff built out, so we'll have it there. And I don't think that this is to me is an absolute no-brainer, and it doesn't affect the general fund. So I'm 1,000% with you. Thanks for putting this together, Frank.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Now, will this free up space upstairs?
Absolutely. If you look at that second page, you see all the yellow highlights on the second page. The floor plan, the one with the yellow highlights.
I just got this.
That's all the space that we're taking right now in City Hall between planning and building. And if you look at the top, you'll see the square footage of what we're using compared to what we're going to go downstairs and expand to. But we're freeing up multiple offices, cubicles, the front lobby, the entire front lobby.
Yeah, because we need to get a break room upstairs because everybody up there's eating, I think, at their desks.
Yeah, I agree.
And the other part too is we're renting a trailer over at Public Works. This would free up offices for the Public Works people. This is just such a good idea. I absolutely love it. Thank you.
Yeah, my concern is the FEMA requirements. Now, is this something we need to move on? Is that going to change to where we better get moving?
It is.
Okay.
We've been talking about this for a while, and we're actually fortunate FEMA's a little behind because they may come down with regulations that prevent us from closing in on the ground floor in certain A zones. So not knowing for sure where those map lines are going to be, but where they're projected could cause us difficulties down the line. We're very comfortable with the ability to flood-proof and to provide protection of the building. And in addition to just expanding the space, it would be better for this building to be enclosed if it's flood-proof because you can sprinkle the whole downstairs area where it is not sprinkled now for fire suppression. And then also, obviously, it would provide protection for the quality of the materials on the inside of the building, the columns and everything else, the ground floor, just by being filled in and air conditioned and all.
We don't have fire suppression downstairs? Yeah, we do.
Certain areas where the trash dump.
Yeah, we bought that. Oh, we didn't buy that. I thought we bought that years ago.
Not under the whole building, though. Just the trash.
Oh, right. My fault. Okay.
Now, while I've got you up here, where do we stand on the generator?
Oh, well, they're starting.
Off subject, but
yeah, we're starting the work on that because we got all the approvals from FEMA, and that started this week.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And so what the staff is asking that you, if you approve this, also to allow us to go forward with an RFP to bring the proposals in for construction. And in terms of keeping the money and the cost in check, the faster we go, the better. Every time we put something like this off several months or a year, of course it costs more than we expected. And it would be a fairly short burn program or project because the structure's already there.
Okay, thank you. Is there any more discussion amongst the commissioners? No. Any public comment on this? I think we're good to go. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve moving forward with an RFP for construction on this addition to City Hall.
Is there a second? City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Vice Mayor Andrews?
Yes.
Commissioner Price? Yes. Commissioner Hodges?
Yes.
Commissioner Douthert?
Yes.
Mayor Hendricks?
Yes.
The motion carried 5-0.
Okay, next on the list is staff reports. Mr. Laughlin?
Okay, good evening. So you've received a monthly packet containing June year-to-date information. I've also separately sent you all details as of the end of July for both revenues and expenses and all the funds of the city. All I'll really have prepared to present at this moment is revenues. I know that's a major concern considering where are we in terms of COVID impact on specific revenue sources. Currently, the department heads are working on their year-to-date, or I should say, projections through September 30, 2020. So by the next budget workshop that we have scheduled on August 16th, I believe, I'll want to present that to you all to give you as accurate a depiction as possible of the both revenues and expenses in each fund and each department through 9/30/20. For now, I do have some revenue information I can share, and then of course address any questions that you all have. So just in general on the revenue front, focused on the general fund, my accounting manager put together some projections just on general fund revenues, and let's exclude grant revenues because those are real timing based, and often in all situations, the revenue and the expense completely offset each other because these would be reimbursement based grants. So due to timing, that can fluctuate wildly from budget. So removing grant revenue, we're approximately $180,000 under budget, from about 9.6 million to 9.63 million to 9.564 million of actual. So what are the major changes or fluctuations in that? In ad valorem tax revenue, we're actually 56, almost 57,000 higher than budget, and this relates to the fact that we budget 95% collection estimate, and might be more accurate in rural communities. In beach communities, you do see a little higher based on just the value of properties, depending on location. So we're at almost 57% or 57,000 higher on ad valorem revenue. Some of the hits we're taking from what we're estimating is going to be in transportation, so that's our parking. We had budgeted 1.9, almost 2 million, looking like we're going to collect more like 1.7, so a $226,000 shortfall is what we're projecting on parking, so that's going to be our biggest hit. And again, this is projections, for the last 2 months of the fiscal year. The other in culture and recreation, Jay next to me gave projections through year end based on 356,300 budgeted, looking more like 267,000 that'll come in actual for an $88,000 shortfall. So those are the two that are taking the largest hit in the general fund. As far as our shared revenues go, I actually saw an uptick just looking at half-cent sales tax revenue because that had concerned me. And so just to share with you on that, the collection that we had most recently, or the month before, was $16,798, which was a far cry lower than the average of about 23, 24, 25,000. But then just this last month, and remember we're at a 2-month lag from when the underlying consumer transaction takes place to when it's then collected by the state and then distributed to the municipalities. We saw an uptick just on our last collection from 16,000 now up to 21,795. So that bodes well. That's almost back to the average of what it was. So no real concern on the shared revenues. Our communication services tax revenue looks very good, pretty consistent month in, month out, as well as our revenue sharing. On the lost fund, the local option sales tax, or the penny for Pinellas, we're budgeted $479,300, which is about $40,000 a month. So in our good months pre-COVID, we saw a couple months where there were some significant increases over that. One month we had 58,000, another month 49,000. In our worst month, which was a May collection, we were down to 24,000. But now in this last one, in the June collection, we're back up to 31,000. So we can continue to see some climb. Overall, our average is around 38,000 compared to the 40. So if we see that continual uptick, we might be a little under budget on the penny funds, but not significantly. So that bodes well. That's on the revenue front, what I had for you just on some of those shared revenues, especially that could be the most impacted by COVID. Any questions on any of the information that I've sent you either in a separate communication or that's posted here in the packet?
Andrew, I got to be honest, I really liked the report you sent us the other day. It was really detailed. I mean, this is just kind of a microcosm of that, but the detailed report you sent us the other day with all the funds, all the, the general fund and then obviously the marina fund, the sanitation fund, things like that. I was a little alarmed and not alarmed, but I guess looking at this page 541, and I'm not picking on the marina, but I will pick on the marina for a second. The expenditure line for the marina looks like 75% of the year done, and they've only spent 53.41% of their money, which at first glance is really, really good, except for the fact that I looked at your more expanded version of it. It's not in this document, and there's a $970,000 encumbrance, which then turns that number into a completely different number. I was just doing the math. I mean, we sold about, counting regular gas, commercial gas, and like, we sold about $1.4 million worth of gas, and we spent $700,000 purchasing it. So unless we're making $1.40 a gallon on gas, that doesn't work. So the encumbrance, and I don't know, and we got into an argument about this last year with Walter, and all of a sudden the encumbrance disappeared. And I know encumbrances don't disappear. They're usually purchase orders, right? And they sit in until they're paid. Is that pretty much how you?
Right. Encumbrance is the unspent portion of a purchase order. And so,
right. So it's not an asset to us. It's a liability to us, correct?
Technically, it's not a liability to the city. It's an amount that's, call it reserved, or that's
going out eventually, right?
It's a projection of what will be spent.
Okay. Yeah, that's all I needed to know. Yeah, because you're looking at these numbers, they're not bad, and then all of a sudden you look at a couple of things like that, and but it's a really good report, and I appreciate you putting those out, because that's important for it, because we're talking about millage rates, we're talking about budgets, without any current information, especially in a year like this with all the COVID craziness. We kind of need to know where we're at before we put our stamp on anything and saying, hey, this is our thing. But thank you again. That's some good stuff.
And one thing just to follow up that I'm working on is a transparency solution for the city where we'll be posting online. You can go on the city's website and there'll be a link that'll have a wealth of information, all the capital projects, both current and the future, what the status is, detail like this by fund, by department, budget to actual, so you can see that at any moment. And so it's a transparency solution that's a cloud-based solution that will link to our website that'll give you all that information at your fingertips, both you and all members of the public. So that's in the works.
Great.
Any other questions on any of the information I've presented? Otherwise, we'll have a lot more spirited discussion, I'm sure, at our next budget workshop as we go through. And it's obviously important, budgeting for FY21, what we anticipate FY20 is going to look like by the end of the year. And to Commissioner Andrews' point, if we've got unspent purchase orders, we need to know that so we can incorporate that into FY21 budget, especially for those capital projects, to make sure that anything that is unspent, we've got that accounted for when we're budgeting in FY21, so we know what next fiscal year is going to look like.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Other reports? Does the City Commission have anything?
Can't hear you. I've got it now. I've had 2 different public officials in nearby towns say to me that we did the absolute right thing in naming Clint Belk as our new fire chief, and that they have so enjoyed working with him. He's already on a board with some of the Reddington folks, and they're totally impressed. So I was so happy to hear that. I think maybe our reputation may be taking a little bit of a inch upward now. But I wanted to especially say the thank you to him for his expertise and his willingness to work. And that's what everybody was saying, you know, that he's spot on and he's happy to do it and be helpful. So good choice on that one, Mr. Daniels.
Actually, Clint gets all the credit.
Yes, he should.
Well, for me, of course, as everybody that sits up here ends up doing, I guess, I'm a member of the Big C, which is the coastal mayors. So, and we've got a meeting tomorrow. I had a meeting today with Pinellas County Council of Mayors. Got some virtual meetings coming up with the Florida League of Cities and the Florida League of Mayors. So we're trying to get Madeira Beach out there and exposed and bring in more business and learn more and see what's out there for us for grants and where we can generate revenue, and just brainstorm with the other mayors on things we can do during this COVID outbreak and to bring in revenue for the city.
Yep.
Anyone else? City Manager, have you got anything for us?
No, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. City Clerk, have you got anything for us?
I do. I want to thank the commission for adoption of the charter amendments that goes on the November 3rd to 2020 general municipal ballot, and also working with the Sunshine Amendment Foundation for an attorney to come and do the Sunshine Law Seminar, and I'm waiting for them to give me the dates that she will be able to come, and then I'll contact each commissioner and we'll get that set up, and then we'll put the flyer out to other cities, and other commissioners may want to attend, and employees. It's for the employees as well. It's important that they get the education and training as public officers and employees, and certificates will be provided for those that do attend. For us Form 1 filers, you know, we're required to get the 4-hour training every year, so I know it will at least be the 4 hours and meet the requirement of the state for that training.
Thank you. There's one other thing I failed to mention, and that is that I've had a number of meetings down at Johns Pass. I don't know if y'all are aware of the fact that Johns Pass is gradually closing in. We've been trying to push this up the ladder to get some help. A couple of weeks ago, myself and city manager and some other local folks met with Charlie Christ. We're trying to get this pushed up to the Corps of Engineers level to where we can possibly lengthen the jetties, get that sand dredged, and try to get them on board with even helping us with the groins. And I don't know if we'll be able to make it fly, but nothing ventured, nothing gained. That's it for me. Is there anything else? This meeting is adjourned at 8:13.